Welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust and Transparency. Today, I'm going to show you the exact framework that you need to go to figure out how and where to start in property development. Now, I get this question all the time from a lot of people that see the highlights reels on the socials and want to be able to become a developer. People see the glitz, the glamour, and the money side of it. There's obviously the stressful side of it, high risk, high reward. However, I want to break down today not only the 3 things that every development deal will need, I also want to cover the 3 points, what you need to address. And by doing all these things, you will have exactly what you need to get started in development. Now, a quick little reminder is that previously this week, if you scroll back through my videos, and I will pop the link up here, I put together a video that allows you to calculate, reverse engineer and calculate how much money you need to get into a deal. So if you're wondering how much money you need, go back and watch that video and watch this video. And I think the 2 together will give you the insight and clarity that you need in order to start in property development. Now, every single deal in property development needs 3 things. 1 is going to be expertise / education / experience. You're going to need to be someone or have someone that is the expert, that is experienced in property development to be able to run the deal. If you don't, you have an extremely high amount of risk behind that deal if you don't know what you're doing. So either you need to be that person or you need to outsource or partner with someone such as myself that is educated on the property, that is educated in property development in that particular project style that you are doing to be able to guide you through the process. The second is going to be, and I'll just move it down here because of my spacing, is going to be capital. Now that can come in 2 forms, cash or equity. Now, depending on the type of deal, the size of the deal, as I said, that previous video will tell you how much cash or equity, but we do need some of this, whether we have the cash to buy the site or we have the site already, and it has a substantial amount of equity in it to be able to use and run. We need some sort of capital to be able to run the deal. And the third, as I just alluded to, is the site. Now, best case scenario is that you obviously have all 3. Second best case scenario is you have these 2. And if you had to pick one from this list, you're going to pick the expertise, education, and experience. Now, people always ask why I created a property investment course rather than go down the BA route like every other person in Australia. And the reason is because all these things can be taken away from you. Your possessions, anything you own can be taken away. What cannot be taken away is your experience and your skills, and your education cannot be taken away from you. Once you learn a skill, you can have that skill for life. So my understanding and my thinking with the course is to educate people, train them up on the skill, give them and equip them with what they need, that support, that team. But once they have that skill and they're equipped with that skill, they have that for life. If you don't and you outsource it every single time, you will pay that price every single time. Like the buyer's agent, you're trying to build a 5 property portfolio, 25 grand a pop, bing, 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 bing. It's good, but at the end of the day, it is just a skill set that you can acquire. Yes, it costs money sometimes to acquire it in the form of a course. However, once you have acquired it, it is a price you pay once, an entry fee, and then you get to keep that skill for life. So that's why I always say building that base is extremely important in my opinion. That's why I did a property investment course. And that's why I think even with development, if you had to pick one of these 3 things to develop a site, that's why I always say it is most important to have the expertise, the experience, and the education on property development. From there, when I'm expertise and I know what I'm talking about, I can find the site. I can find the person with capital. Capital is easier to find than you think. Once you start talking about it, you have the expertise and you can show people what's possible. You'll be surprised how many people can come out of the woodwork and say This is how much I've got. You know, a lot of people, mums, dads, families sitting on property for 10, 20, 30 years that has an insane amount of equity that can potentially be used for a particular deal. Now, obviously, you watching this video, I don't know where you're starting at, right? I don't know where you're starting at. So you tell me, and you have a think about, are you in box one? You're learning, you're getting the education, the expertise. Are you in box two? Do you have the cash, the capital, cash or equity? If so, you obviously need to attain the skills or work with someone. Or do you have the site? And if you do have the site, then you might need both of those. So 1 is easy to get, 2 and 3. 2, you still need 1. 3, you still need 1. That's why 1, in my opinion, is the most valuable and is an extremely valuable skill set, in my opinion. Now, after you know where you sit in this particular threshold, there are 3 questions, elements that you will need to answer in able to clarify everything for you. The first is going to be development type. When I say development type, I mean the type of strategy, what you're developing. So that could be things like a subdivision. It could be additional dwelling. It could be new homes. Could be duplexes. It could be townhouses. It could even be apartments. Now, obviously not trying to provide any financial advice on this channel. However, with my experience in property development, working for small boutique and some of Australia's largest privately owned developers, it would be my recommendation that you do not look at apartments because of the rules, regulations, costs associated with it. And you start at some of these. If you're watching YouTube videos and you're learning about development, there's a good chance that you haven't started or you're very fresh in it. So I would potentially look at anywhere from a subdivision to duplex and townhouses. Obviously, subdivision could be you acquire a block, you can put a battle axe at the back, you know, sell that off. You can go one step further. You can add a dwelling. You can get a corner block. You can cut it off, keep the dwelling, sell the land at the back. You can develop the land at the back, additional dwelling. Both these two are the same. You can even think about land and chopping land up. New homes, it could be buying those old rundown sites where the numbers work, or buying those areas where there's subdividable land, adding new homes. Duplexes, we know that. We buy the rundown house, we cut it in half, and then we put 2 side by side. Townhouses, we go one more, and instead of putting 2, we put 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all those sorts of things. So they're the strategies and they're the things that you need to think about. Now, how you would pick one of those is going to depend on a few things. Where you're sitting up here. You know, are you already sitting on a site that is a duplex site? Are you already sitting on a site that is a townhouse site? Remember, we know cash and equity required. What of these can you get into? Experience. Are you educated? If you are educated, you're going to know which one of these starts to pop out and which ones you like. Me personally, I've selected townhouses just from my experience and what I'm good at. I know the townhouses is the sort of game that I'm playing in. Also, might dabble in looking at a few duplex sites at the moment, so we'll dabble in those two. Doesn't mean that you need to copy me, but that's what I'm comfortable with. Obviously, risk appetite, capital outlay, how big of a site you want to do, how long of a construction you want to do, how much profit you want to make, are all things that are going to come into the development type. The number 2 thing that you need to sort out, if I can spell it right, is the funding strategy. How are you going to fund this property development? Do you have the skills and expertise and you need to find a capital partner? Do you have an existing site with equity in it, or maybe there's no equity? Do you have a property portfolio that you can cash out some equity to start in? Remember, watch that video, as I said, the previous video I uploaded this week on finding out how much money you need to require. But the funding strategy is going to be extremely important because you need to find out how you're going to fund this deal. Are you going to partner up with a landowner that has a site? Are you going to partner up with your rich auntie, uncle, anyone like that to be able to get the capital? Are you going to partner up with someone that you know, work with, colleague, anything like that for the capital? You need to know before you get started exactly how you are going to fund it. Now, if you're looking at thinking, I don't know how to fund it, you need to go back and pour into this bucket. As my good friend Stevie Bartlett says, you need to go back and pour into this bucket to know how much money. But you need to have your funding strategy. So for example, it could be a joint venture where someone puts in the money, you have the expertise and education. It could be someone gives you money and you get a fixed return. Could be some sort of loan, something like that. Once we know what type of project we're doing and how we're going to fund it, those two things combined with them is going to give you the last and final part of the puzzle, is going to give you a location. Why? Well, let's just say, I settle on, I know the amount of money I've got in my portfolio, I can do an equity release, I'm comfortable with the risk associated with a duplex development, and I know I'm going to fund it myself. And I'm looking for $2 million duplex sites. Now that is going to give you enough information for you then to find the location, because you're going to be able to have a look in sold price history, whatever state you're in. People always ask me, what is the best place or where are you developing? My first answer is, one, none of your business. But my second main answer is going to be, it doesn't matter. I believe there's opportunities in almost every single suburb. There's opportunities in every single state. I know developers developing north. I know developers developing south. For me, all my experience in terms of working for developers and in architecture has been in New South Wales. I know the New South Wales planning portal. I've got connections. I've got friends. I know the industry. I know the builders, all those sorts of things. So for me, I stick with New South Wales. But for you, you might be watching this in another state, territory. It doesn't matter. You will need to then start having a look at, if that is your strategy, where they are selling $2 million duplexes for. Go back to that video. You'll be able to go back and say, okay, I know I need this money. Cool. How am I going to fund that money? Equity partner, all that kind of stuff. So already you've got the expertise. You've worked out the capital. Now you're just on to finding the site. That's how I would get through it. Now, when picking a location, I'll give you this little tip. I've done it in short form too. I talk about it all the time. I see a lot of buyers agents who think the developers get this wrong, and then their sites will be on the market for 3, 4, 5 months. There was one the other day that I saw was still on market, but the buyer's agent put out a video about how good they are and how much money they made. You haven't made money till you're sold. Anyway, every single suburb has a development. Every single suburb, like a property cycle, has a development cycle. Now, watching this at the moment, you would see Wallara in Sydney's eastern suburbs was quite a sleepy suburb. The Wallara Council have been one of the worst in Australia in terms of development approvals. It's a very sleepy suburb. There is a very low population in Wallara. I believe, if I'm going at the numbers that Mins talked about in a press conference a couple of days ago, I think it's got a lower population now compared to 1970. But that's not the point. But that Wallara, for example, was sitting at always sitting in terms of a property cycle, was always sitting at, if we say my property cycle is like the property cycle and the development cycle are similar. Wallara was sitting down here very cold for a long time. Obviously the council goes, obviously the government goes, we're going to put X amount of thousands of houses in there. Boom, we start to warm up and it goes on this sort of run. I think every suburb has development cycles that run sometimes different to property cycles, and there's a few more things at play, rezoning, things like that, perfect example. So when we're picking a suburb, the best place and the best time to buy in the suburb is this time here. It's where I can go into the suburb and I can see a couple, in the last 12 months, I can see a couple instances where they've sold $2 million duplexes. Because if you're too early, you never want to be the first person in. Why? Because there's extreme amount of risk. If you have no other comparable sales that you can share, The first thing the bank's going to do when you go for your construction or your development finance is do that and go, oh, the bank will go, oh, there's no comparable sales. There is an extremely high chance then that they're going to come back, value whatever you're building, the $2 million duplex, extremely low, meaning you have to put in a heaps more cash, and it just might kill the deal for you. You never want to be first, but also you never want to be last, because if you're last, you've missed the boat. No one's buying duplexes in sight. So a good chance is to get into that market where you're seeing there's some sales evidence start to come through. A biggest mistake people make, buyer's agents included, I'm talking about, is buying in the top of the market. When you're buying the top of the market and there's duplexes, for example, $2 million on every street, what do you have? You have an oversupply. Oversupply means you don't have any scarcity, means as a seller selling that stock, your real estate agent doesn't have a lot of leverage because there is so much on the market that people can be very, very picky about what they want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like. And they know that, oh, look, we'll miss out on this one. It doesn't matter because we know they're popping up everywhere. However, if you're early on and there's a duplex once every 6 months, then you do have that scarcity because they go, oh, fuck, well, we really wanted it now. Then there's no new ones coming online. We might have to wait till after Christmas next year. We really wanted something. So you want to pick that area that's there rather than the top. And even if you're anywhere here, anywhere there, there's a good chance it's an oversupply. The duplexes have came and gone. You've missed a wave. You might get something on the back end of it, but you won't get the highest GRs because you don't have that premium. You don't have that scarcity. You're coming off the back of the oversupply where everyone that wanted a duplex in that particular suburb has already bought it. So that is the best time. Location, you're going to have how much money you want your end product to be, or even if you don't, even if you just have your development strategy and a way to fund it, you can then still look at locations, because you might say, okay, so where is my townhouse market? Where are they building townhouses? Or where are the new homes? Or where are they carving up and adding dwellings? What do I need in terms of site size? Where do I need to be able to add dwellings? Where is there the market that is at this stage in its timeline to be able to develop? That will give you location. So by the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen, you should know where you sit here, what bucket of these, where you need to work on, or what you need to solve. Again, first and the second are the most important. With both of those comes the third. So 1 + 2 = 3, not a math equation, but these are the first important. This is the most crucial. From there, once we pour into that cup, we're then going to select a development type, and also a funding strategy. So is that JV? Is that equity? Is that capital partner, banks, etc.? My writing's so messy. Once I have those two down pat, and I know what I want to do and for how much, then I can start looking at a location. Now, it might come back that you say, oh, I want to do a $600,000 duplex. You might not be able to find that. You probably can, but you just need to work with what you got here. Feed that into development type. Development type and funding will inform the location, and then you'll know exactly where to start in development. You'll know what you need to work on. You'll know development type. You'll know how you're going to fund it, and then that will inform your location. So that's how I would kind of summarize it. Again, the most important here is the first bucket: expertise, education, and experience. If you don't have it, you need to pay for it or onboard or work with someone that does, so that you can learn the process. Once you know the process, you're going to be really good and be able to find capital. Now imagine if you've just got capital, you obviously need to find someone experienced to get into property development. I've worked with guys that have capital, and then obviously with my experience, I can say, okay, well, let's do a project together. even if you've got the site, you go, okay, no, I can do a duplex on this. You still need the education and experience. So that's why this bucket is the most important to be able to do. Without that, you may be in some trouble. So if you're still looking for education expertise, go to all your free resources out there. I had someone in the comments a few weeks ago ask about a course. I haven't seen any that I would rate to be able to give you which one to go to, but stick by channels like mine, and maybe there's others on YouTube, podcast. We do a lot of development-based podcasts to be able to build up your expertise in education. But apart from that, my friends, that is how to get started in development. Answer those questions. You'll know exactly where you need to work on, where to kick off at. Questions, thoughts, queries in the comments. And as always, I will see you tomorrow.